Well, thank you, Eric. We are going to go ahead and get started. And welcome to this month's A Moveable Beast. And thank you for choosing us on St. Patrick's Day. I'm very grateful for that. So this A Moveable Beast takes place on the third Friday of every month. These are the last two of this year, or this season, tonight, and then one on April 21st, also at 7 p.m. A big thanks to Steve I at Solar Culture for letting us use the space, and to Maryrose, Eric, and Lisa for helping us pay for it. Very grateful. The press that sponsors this, called Sonorous Ink, is accepting book-length manuscripts this month. So if you're interested in sending in a book for us to check out, please do so. You can find it more info on our website, which is just sonorousinkret.com. Lisa's writing in place at Sabino Canyon is next month. Tomorrow, sorry, my mistake. We're going to, please go and check that out and enjoy that. And there's lots of poetry going on in Tucson. Revolutionary Grounds has their open mic on the first Friday of the month. The second Saturday is Spark Collective. I think Interrupted by Trains is tomorrow, as well as Pog's reading series is going, and tomorrow is Hank Lazar, Tinny Nathanson, and Charles Alexander read at the Steinfeld. Lisa probably knows more about that too. And there's also a lot of open mics that have started right now. So if you go to the Poetry in Tucson Facebook group, you can see there's just a ton right now. So it's really cool. All right, and so if anything happens here that makes you feel unsafe, please let me know. And we're gonna get started. So grab a drink and any food you'd like, and we'll be starting in just a few minutes. Thanks. Hello again. All right, so I'm going to start off this evening with some of my poetry. I've been hesitant to read my work too much at A Moveable Beast because I don't want it to really be about me, this place. But I couldn't stop anymore, so I decided to give myself a slot once. Thank you. I find I'm struggling to write these right now. Actually, could be for a lot of different reasons, I have no idea. But as is kind of my way when I have difficulty writing, I get very nerdy. And so last time this happened, I started delving into statistics really hard. And right now I've started reading a lot about the humane arts, as they're called, which is really a ridiculous term, because it seems that we got a train coming. That this is something that's done by people who really don't have a lot in common with most of humanity. And they call it the humane arts, and really it's for things for people of leisure, and what they defined leisure as. Like for the Greeks, they thought that freedom was freedom from hoeing or doing agricultural tasks. That was largely what freedom was in Greek society. And so I've been reading about leisure, and it seems that, like, it's kind of insane. And anyway, I wrote some poems. Leisure is basically if you have money and you don't have to work. You do what you want to do, and it's like Newton when he wrote about the laws of physics and calculus. That wasn't what he was contractually obligated to do. He was supposed to tell sermons, give sermons at this university, and he didn't. And instead he wrote about physics and calculus, and evidently that's what we liked best, so that's what we remember him for, and that's what the universities talk about when they have it, but that's not what it was supposed to do at the university. The university was antithetical to what the university was supposed to do. And it seems that a lot of things are this way when it comes to leisurely activities, is we're supposed to, leisure comes from the word licentiousness, which is basically to not do what you're supposed to do, but rather be a layabout and do something that actually matters to you. And I guess that's a hard thing to do, especially now, when we're supposed to do all sorts of things, and we have to do more things all the time. So this is a wordplay about not doing anything. Dilly-dally, the Danish dancer, dabbling Dillard's dervish, diving the dimple dimes, time's teacup twists tempo, this tickle timing time, trance tin men twiddles, busyness babble branching bassoons, biting Brahmin, bisques boiling brothers, prim the primmed prancer, prime pillar pilfers a pinned up panning panner of pans, vast vindictive the vindicated, victor's verity upon the vassaled, vision these vanishing viscera, fang-fangled flinching fixing those flown flyers, finish the flung final fishing, simmer the sumptive season, cinders sing same signs, sounding a sogged secret. And then it got weirder. Prune trunk spindles, no fruit branches below, severed paws too curled, more tan than olive, turquoise coyote twists space to spaceless between copper maws, blue askew saucer holds water true, half-submerged leaf curling, a tea for finch, wren, and fat cocker. Sky gray cloud seems recursive, seamless iteration without sameness. Purpled fish hollows itself, beating its fins and soundless thrumming. This is actually old, I wrote this years ago, but I repurposed it. Thrice maroon tinsel, faux mute trances below. Tethered seas blue merle, burr span evolves. Roister two-tone mist shape new shapeless tartine supplements. And there are lots of things being bought and they have to go buy. Blue-blued scholar folds altered hues, gaps converging and deceived blurring, steam-powered wrench pin and black copper. High grape owl, reams respurred, dreamlike rations mount contagion, churlish wish bellows 12, heating tin bits spin profoundest mummings. The mummers masked in mind, their murmurs held little meaning, more sound than noise, though still not speech. Taking tourniquets, they treated the audience's invisible wounds, acting horrified and dumbstruck by fantasized gore. Oh, who has seen such gore, such vividness and spectacle, colors so pure they can't possibly exist? One mummer stood out among the others, dressed in white coat and wearing a mirror as a mask. They worked deftly to reflect their imagined wounds upon their face. At last the mirrored mummer lifted their mask to reveal their mouth. It opened and nothing came out. Oh, thanks. I decided I didn't like the bottom, so I'm not going to read it. Waved curtain flapped in breeze. Cabinet drawer strummed as pulled, neutral voice reminds me its other is to do what it hasn't done. Foot's warm pressure then placed against its other. Dusk between reduces friction. Winter tree seems root reaching for sky. Imagined success elicits fear. Clouds in pale sky deform and reform in westward slide. Through wire screen, two birds perched on neighbor's roof, their compartmented bodies intertwined. They move back and forth, bit by bit. Marzipan's fatting ease, banana gut knowers nidus. A phonic apology needles boisterous kinds as cluttered glue future plays at cordon. Bookworm fisher, winsome cedar agasket brothers. Cassette reprobate ion. Soupy glitter fee scale moot bleaches the inkling dye. Blended raucous elocutions. Fountain salve your poured, anthem genetics sour blind. Doughy rains funicular, searching handsome boar coot, terrorized part snips, tithe orbicular vines, and teeth axe or wart incrementally. So that was just me playing with my backyard with words. So thanks. And then I don't know, there's this poem called by Blake, who was kind of this Renaissance slash Age of Discovery slash madman. And he was a printer, and he'd print these things that were intentionally heretical, but I think he was mostly just messing with people. But also he had some things he wanted to say too. And he wrote this thing called America, a Prophecy, which was around when British colonization was kind of at its height. And this is what I translated it, which is to say I mistranslated it on purpose. So, when I translated it from English to English, so it's always fun. Blonde America stands before the red stone. In the 7th month of the 14th day, they came to a hidden home. Take food in an iron jar and lunch in an iron jar, ignorant in feeling and darker hairs. She wept and burned good things, and bowed down to her reflection as if it were sight. A wind rose surprise. Punishment comes from your iron, not the Almighty. None say no when the clouds begin to roll. You wake up to the clear sky, you weep because you cannot cry. On that sad day of surprised wind and cursed hands, a goat spoke. Eagle woman, your father is cruel and industrious. When I was silent, a million chains rose upon my spirit. This eagle soars in the wind, only my tears water the ground. I get up and sometimes I go after the whales. Hell's cool flame wrapped in fat. Black trees around sprout. He worked the Canadian forest as a guide for industrialists. Made him weak in my hands, could fashion him as it suited me. These caves will be destroyed when freedom is unbound. I clap happily as he sees this would kill us both. Not funny, he screams. The skies are coming and in and out of his eyes. The clouds are coming in and out of his eyes. Freedom's power is perfect, like love and jealousies. His hair plugs were straight, his beard was curly. His fear broke his femur, and he grabbed any bosom in pain. That is to say, he hurls thunder and shits tenderness, which is to say he's not much fun at parties. That is to say his visage is that of God, which is to say he's a beautiful, filthy liar. And seeing the frightened boy, she cried out, I know I have found you. Now I'll never let you go. He is the image of the God living in the darkness, a man believing himself immortal, walking in death's shadow in the USA. And so, where are we at? I don't know when I started, so I'm just going to go a little longer.
Just keep going.
Yeah. This is a book I published, is it over a year ago now? A year? 2 years ago? I don't know. Time sucks. It was a little over a year ago, okay. And it was written during the pandemic when we didn't know anything about COVID. So that was fun, remember that? And so we got my grandma out of her home, and she lived in my room. And I stayed in my study for about a year and a half, mostly, until I could get, did very little till I could get my shots. And that vaccines were good. I liked them. So this is the beginning of this book, which I wrote during that time. Dimple signal, the idiom is ripe for plucking. Camel course, this reel is a sandy plain. Cantors decanted, songs for a light smacking. A slip inside, registered signs for symbols not mine. A highway of pig's valves, sentient burdens for hoof feet, veins filled with more than gore. Cold by husks hustling for holes. What of the soul? No, really. What of it? Want is soul. Churned body is cheese, globs rain upon gobs. Speech glottal superior to shoot the artillery, will or may. Authenticity's very difference. Bound in modality, shock and awe. Tin high step, clan polished till gleaming. Abraham of Oklahoma, slugging towards Mariah. Bleached hoods to cover hidden peculiarity. Must be as every must be. Fealty to a stuff dream huffing. Tin, copper, and human organs in amalgam defense for parasols and haberdashers. Neon crucifix broadcasts electric salvation, saving the immortal Nolan whole. Confido sin fence, dividing being into fun-size, cellophane enclosed identities. Please package me so I could be the total package. Envy of players and playmates, hedge managers and angels investors. Visionaries of extraction, excretion, exploitation, but never proprioception. Twisting fluids remind the pixel gear its teeth are simulated. There is no crank for turning. Luscious rouged lips float disembodied, bitten by incalculable ions engorged. Such is the flowering of enlightenment. Life is not a dream. Beauty lies in another's eye. Mother mouse suckles worms for beauteous brook club trances. This aesthetic's designed, manufactured, and distributed for caged birds. Honey-baked minds, the manners of mimes, picking cherries for beholden mistresses. The muses died for their music. Minced miniads feed the man money to gawkers turn make-believe self-made men. Such fantasy. Around fate's wheel it goes, where it stops no mind knows. No, the god dot, this knowem, the know me, the know it, the note, no mantic, suspicion of consistency of I. In closing, hazy I am toe cracks cocoon. It seems that right now we're doing it all over again, which I guess is, what we do. Holes, hot coursing woes, art, a not-whole source, or flesh tied in a bow. This eeny-miny mosul careens in the least aleatory way. 1. Unfathomable paradox or I, which is more graspable? All I know is I nose through itself, dulled self, smooth like porcelain in a cute dress, desirable because it can't exist. Taste the unconscious copper and salt. It too is Tao. I am no master plus wildcard. I dreamt I was walking through a dollhouse, pastel and blue, in search of family. I originated a door to the sky and woke amiss in a hospital. Fumaroles, sulfates as humanity. I strangled them all. Plump baobab, Dasani trademark for trunk, breathing life into the dust until dry. Unconscious wishes seep onto rough canvas, sticky marrow-coated incisors. Petals spread wide await the honeybee. The honeybees are dying, occupied. Gray light fades to crimson, Eros and Aphrodite gone. Murder-suicide. Compassionate divine loves too fiercely and lost its way. Fell into passion and picked up a sword and slew blueness itself. I holds me in a circular time, this self-refrain. I wearing war on my sleeve. I covered altar with hoisted pariah turned savior. Whitey gets everything. Burn in the untouchable flux, this million McFlies in time. mutual exclusivity of ego, or I, or I, or I, or I. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop there. And next we have Maryrose Larkin.
Hi everyone, I'm going to walk in my typical unsteady fashion to the unsteady stairs, which I love. This is not actually performance art. Okay, David, I'm going to stand. Is this one up? This one should be low enough, although it's very bright in here. That's so much better. Whoever made that happen made me really happy. Thank you. So, my name is Maryrose Larkin. I'm fortunate enough that David even uses my last name, which is actually kind of taboo here in the Beast world. And I'm infinitesimally venerable. But well, if you count the ones I published myself, I have 5 books, but I really have 3 books. And this was my first book, and the thing about having your first book is that when you're a poet and you don't have your first book and other people have their first book, you are just like, that first book, it's just gonna change my life. That first book, I'm gonna get a star on Broadway, and all the people with the really good haircuts will talk to me now. Everything about poetry is a lie. And that's a lie too. But the reason I'm reading from my first book, which is called The Book of Ocean, one second. The amount, I am short, cannot be underestimated. This is The Book of Ocean, and was partially my master's thesis, and I sent it around, and at the time my work was kind of really weird, and nobody wanted it, or people would want it, but then they'd want me to rearrange it into like lines that all sat over there, like they're little nice, and related to the beautiful margin, and I just could not. So eventually, someone who became a friend of mine started a press to publish it, which is this beautiful thing. But then after that you go, I can never write another book. I don't know how I wrote that book. I can never write another book, unless you're trying to get tenure and then you have to write another book. But most of us are just like, I can't write another book. I don't even know how the first book happened. I don't know what to do. And also you're sobbing internally because of the fact that the first book did not make you cooler. The people with the better haircuts did not talk to you more. Nobody sent you checks in the mail. So I wrote the first book, and then I kept writing. I wrote 2 other books in succession. So I read the first book for about a year or so, and then for good 2-3 years, but then I stopped reading it because I had this feeling of like, okay, this is my juvenilia, and no one would be interested in it, and I couldn't even, I'm not one who reads my own work except in public to other people, so I could like not actually imagine that it had any worthwhileness to anybody but me, except as a beautiful sort of explanation of the follies of being a young adult artist in America. But the other day, like about 6 months ago, I went through it piece by piece because I was like, okay, well, I'm trying to remember that I'm a writer, so let me go through all my work and let me go through it piece by piece and let me read everything. And it turned out there was just so many things that made me happy in this book. I was surprised that it was good. And I was also surprised about the parts I thought were good, because the parts that I originally thought were good were not the parts I think are good now. But therefore, I'm actually I'm going to read you some of the good parts. I'm not going to read any of the bad parts.
Yeah.
So, the first part of this book is all about, it's called the Book of Natural History and Natural History of Poems, and it's all about the idea of how various systems of seeing the world collide. So I was looking at a lot of old science writing and moving from there. So this one is about Isaac Newton, and it's called This. Burn this, the loss and disappearing of green, the green of subliminated. Burn this description, which is bent along a page. Branches past, iris and flamed, it to a species object. Removed from calm, the wood carbon, the clock sulfur, in waste and in smoke. These bodies act upon light, bent several times several, into it the whole of colors pressed, and do brightness upon nothing between this all fixing and radiant you, where burning cannot ebb. 3. Here is the place where half the meaning enters. Exaltation, flame, motion excited into matter, these fringes infecting reason, these events and this expire. 4. The discord which rises within silence, disorder from gold to indigo interrupted, not the species you, the object you pressing in both eyes yellow and falling apart. Burn this and messages will visit, like this sun falling. My relationship lives under this myth about this poem, which is called the Noah Variations. The myth of this poem is that I moved into some commercial space in Silver Spring, like $300 commercial space that I was going to live in, and it came somewhat furnished, and one of the things it came furnished with was the World Book Encyclopedia of 1968. And everything was missing but the E. So, of course, since it was been presented to me, I needed to use it as source material. The other thing that was happening then is that I was having some problems with my eye, and they wanted me to do eye therapy where they make you follow beautiful, possibly invisible dots around the room. And I was always interested in like how much can the real push into poetry without it being a poem about the real? So, that being the case, I decided to use Noah, the encyclopedia, without the World Book without the E, and my eye exam, to try to make it a thing. I talk about this a lot when I talk about poetry, this idea of a poem as a whole object, but that it's like a fractal, so it turns, or like a disco ball, and every moan of the disco ball is different. And in some ways, I think that's what I'm doing when I'm trying to write, is to create this object which can be looked upon from many, many angles. But I'm going to embarrass my husband here. And possibly myself. So, even though I'm like this kind of poet, I still go to open readings all the time and just read, because I want to see what happens when I'm reading to people, any people. I learned so much reading to people who aren't like that into poetry. really, it's a great way to know a lot about what your writing does. But that's why I went to open mics all the time. It was like a Sunday night, and I went to a bar called Kala Kala. And I read this poem, and I read, there is a thing in here saying luminous sky. And so, I walk into this bar, I read this poem, it's not on a napkin, you know. But my husband, Eric, who was the E in my world book now, was sitting in the bar. And we had a one-night stand that has lasted until now. So, I guess...
Yes.
And that's what? That's actually 30 years last year. So, just so you know, it doesn't mean we're doing anything right this minute. It just was a beautiful thing. But it made me so happy because it's nice when those things happen. When you make a work and it somehow bleeds into the world in a specific way, it's not psychosis, although it could look like that. But let me read you this poem, Noah Variations. On Yeva's back the word rose blood. Brenda hung high above the sea. A V in a sailing tongue, a history of suppression in the eye. The patient cannot distinguish left from right. Windshear, seed and relic, wood, blight, femur, apostrophe, femur, blight, wood, relic, and seed, windshield. Arc, sewed ink under his skin, as easy as weather. Render blue the science of fluids in motion. Render black, pitch it within and without with pitch. Words subtract the substance under each. I have not come here only to have been invested with the character of a sign. No E in the world book. Silver is spit into a cloud. Regularity of form or hirsute. Discord, feathered, bare under the tinge, crustacean, scaly, male and female. Decreased pursuits, the patient shows an absence at near or far. The rain, water, absence, terror, etc. Decant whole heaven and only he. Prism at the near point, a luminous sky. Two suns hung in the patient's face. Through the wood window, a blurred bill rendered through the wood window, the stray of it in her mouth. I'm just going to read one more thing because I don't want to be so greedy of your attention. I grew up on Long Island, and on Long Island, the whole East Coast is a very crowded place, and so and it's also connected by trains, and it would be a very, very naughty thing to be doing if you rode your bike with your brother when you were 7 to go stand by the train tracks and wave. Get into a lot of trouble for that. This is part of a breviary. Prime. I opened the idea of sky as an agreement. Construct the new, here a horizon line, There the other plain. Corn silk cloud yields pale to jasmine and variations in gray. It hisses on asphalt, a decline to point. My hand is tethered to the departure of flight. White stipple cycle cerulean glimpse. Cataract and green gesture. The earth and I begin. Tierce. 8 a.m. seen and written under floats up onto the screen and is perceived. And the promise of soft leaf and tangle, and the optical quality of Venetian blinds and the sky that is underneath. The space between is the object sense of what is. Sext. Because the sky is a strange broken mirror, strange is sky because I cannot splinter off the old words. It converses. Blue ravage. The winter eye. Canvas, heaven. Vespers. Outcome, pressure, horizon. Language, motion, sky, a last pleasure, a reduction until the sky is an internal point, a shuttered sun, the stars tethered at evening edge. Indifference is the eye's bitter carnival. Compline, circles under the eye, variations in light and the word blue. Blue and blue laughter and dissolve, hands swim in cerulean, color flying off snow. Word blue, swims in, is color tossed in moon. Eyes circle, a color of blue. Eyes circle, a color of bruise. Word toss, eye moon, and eyes toss, the hand is bruised. Insights are lapis light. A variation of light, the moon in snow. Sky is bruised. Snow at the thumb bridle, thumb the color of the moon flying. Tinted snow and moon highway. Snow the color of blue and moon swimming, hands clench. Snow swims in sky. Word blue trembles and halts. I swim in, swim too, blue, silent. Thank you for your indulgence. Once again, I will non-performatively leave the stage. Got it. It's because they're uneven. I used to have angel wings, but took care of that.
I'm going to just put this here for my own happiness.
Well, thank you so much, Maryrose. And now we're going to get to the open mic part of the evening. First, I'd like to welcome Lisa. The Paul.
I kind of fall off too.
Hello. So a couple of announcements. Tomorrow is the next Sabino Poets Gathering at Sabino Recreation Area. So we're gathering at 9 at the Ramada closest to the parking lot. And typically we go in the road or a trail about a mile and a half out, but we find a good place to sit and share a little writing, do a little writing, be inspired by that beautiful place. So it's the third Saturday of the month, and if you want to get on our mailing list, let me know. Tomorrow night, three wonderful poets are reading at Steinfeld. It's a POG poetry event at 7 o'clock, Steinfeld Warehouse. Just a little further on Toole and off to the right. So Charles Alexander, who has Chex Press and is on the board of POG, and Tenny Nathanson, both multiple books of poetry, and Hank Glaser, another really wonderful poet in from Alabama, I think.
Lavender Press.
Lavender Press, okay. So maybe I'll see you there. Let's see. I have something on my drive I'm going to pull up. Definitely can't read this without glasses. Like many of us desert dwellers, we get excited about the snow. And so I pulled up a snow poem, gave it a little introduction, and so I was inspired by the last snow in the desert a couple weeks ago. Snowed from 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. Big, heavy, wet flakes. I put a cereal bowl out on the back brick patio, and it filled nicely. I was remembering my mom bringing a pan full of snow into the house once when we lived in Ohio or Michigan when I was a kid. And we all got bowls of snow that she poured a little maple syrup over. Probably not the pure maple syrup we buy today. Could have been some log cabin or Aunt Jemima's, but it tasted good to us back then. So tonight, in honor of my mom, I brought the bowl of snow inside and drizzled some pure maple syrup on and ate snow and thought of her, had a sweet memory of her. And this poem is called Flurry of Memories. Around 1958, I was born during a blizzard in Neptune, New Jersey. The power was out, and Grandpa Myron stayed up with me in the kitchen to make sure the stove stayed lit while the snow softly piled up. Around 1909, my Grandma Marie was 7, living with her parents and 4 younger sisters in a small ferry house on the Delaware. This is where they believed Washington stayed after his famous snowy crossing of that river. She grew up and married Myron there. Around 1965, the skating rink that Dad had built for us in the backyard was disguised by a few inches of snow and surprised the poor milkman. Around 1981, the Catalina Mountains in Tucson were a wintry white. Russell and Phil and I hiked into Marshall Gulch on a late December day and roasted hot dogs deep in the snowy woods. Around 1971, a Thai exchange student named Somnook came to live with us for a year. He had never been in snow. Around 1968, we hiked through a foot of heavy snow in the moonlight to a shelter deep in the woods of Harriman State Park just to roast marshmallows and drink hot chocolate in that pristine pocket of the universe. Around 1979, I was traveling with a friend to the Northwest in April or May when it snowed as we camped near Mono Hot Springs in Northern California. We were in a freezing cold trout stream at night while it was snowing, warmed by the hot spring, as we looked up at the Sierra Nevada mountains, snow falling on our heads. Around 1998, in a classic Plan B, a surgeon sliced me open and pulled out my daughter as snow frosted the Sonoran Desert to welcome the next generation.
And next up we have Ash.
It says, oh, never mind, forget it.
Put that there in case I get a dry mouth or nervous, I guess. I don't know. Hi. This is gonna go down like slowly or something. This is the first time I've been to Moveable Beast. I've been trying to get here for months, so I'm happy to be here. I've been at a few open mics around and other poetry circles. I'm Ash Hooke. I treated myself with the help of my partner to a poetry workshop class from the lovely Maggie Golston at Pima. And, you know, because it's always good to make you work in that kind of thing. It's been really great. And so our text is a postmodern anthology, which is always an adventure. And it's been fun. And the first week we talked a lot about, you know, romanticism to modernism to postmodernism and things like that. I also teach high school in the public education system. So, and I teach a senior class called War and Conflict, and so I know all about how World War I changed the world. And so it was really an interesting thing. I really enjoyed it. And so we were talking about modernism and how it went from, you know, those romantic ideologies to more concrete things. And, you know, William Carlos Williams, there's no ideas but in things. And I am a confessional poet, so I'm like, oh no, how am I going to give up all of the emotions for just the concrete imagery? And then I went, no, I'm not going to do that, but I'll put both of them in a poem. So, and it was, you know, the assignment was write to an abstraction, which I do all the time. So this is to loneliness. Dear loneliness, the cat is chewing on the succulents. Bloated, waxy, non-leaves pocked with tiny teeth marks. Time bloat catting about, furiously darting to and fro, sucker coagulating, all efforts as wax, leaving me undone. Beads of water quiver, held in mathematic perfection, perched upon divots and dips, strung beads on an invisible thread. Eyes watering, beady, mind manic and chewed, I hold on to the sleeping dog, hoping the unseen math of the universe will somehow save me. I stare, straining. Soil stains ring the attached drain dish, creeping closer to its edge, stringing rusty, evaporated past into reductive vertigo ridges, trauma concentrated. You make me empty sick, spoiled saccharine caustic confection. What I really want to say, loneliness, is that I'm perfect in your arctic bloatedness. A waxen image, unreal but too real. Surrounded by quiet cat-marked belongings, I languish, wondering at how no ideas but in things leaves me lost in the lent of you. I mean, I love imagery and I do like stuff like that, but that's a little bit different for me. This is my book. I hand wrote it, you know, my first book. No. I've written lots of poetry journals. I have submitted some manuscripts this year, so that was cool. I mean, they don't ever get back to you, right? So.
You still did it?
It takes months. I don't know. It was January. I got lots of time before they'll let me know. All right. Yeah, I will, of course, you know. I mean, I'm all about Stephen King's rejection letters on the nail, so. And I have things in, other people's anthology books and magazines and stuff, so it's fine. All right, so this is more my speed, so I want to read, so this next thing that we did was respond to another poet. And a friend of mine had sent me a link to an NPR interview with this new and upcoming poet, Saeed Jones. And he's a black queer man in America. He's really great. And a black queer man sent it to me, so it was really good. He's like, I was wondering who to send it to, and you like poetry, so here you go. And it was really powerful for me, and so I responded to the poem and submitted it for my assignment, and Maggie was at the conference in Seattle. Thank you. The acronym I don't know yet. Anyway, and she saw Saeed Jones read, and then went back to our hotel and opened up the D2L and is like, oh my God, Ash, you just did this. So the serendipity of that was really great. So I'm going to read Saeed Jones's poem first, and then I'll read my response to it. His poem, his collection, his book is called Alive at the End of the World, and this is the poem that goes with that. The end of the world was mistaken for just another midday massacre in America. Brain matter and broken glass, blurred boot prints in pools of blood. We dialed the newly dead, but they wouldn't answer. We texted, begging them to call us back, but the newly dead don't know how to read. In America, a gathering of people is called target practice or a funeral, depending on who lives long enough to define the terms. But for now, we are alive at the end of the world, shell-shocked by headlines and alarm clocks burning through what little love we have left. With time, the white boys with guns will become wounds we won't quite remember enduring. How did you get that scar on your shoulder? Oh, a boy I barely knew was sad once. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? If you haven't looked this guy up, you should. All right, so my response is from the position of a teacher. There is a school shooting every 77 days in America. So my title of mine is Living in the This is the first time I've read this one out loud, so Living in the American Apocalyptic Genre. That's what mine is. The end of the world felt like every other school day. My perpetual teacher sadness distorting reality. Subliminal sorrow translated through 1,000 clinically scared, depressed, medicated, and anxious hormonal youths. As we wonder when the semi-automatic shoe will fall. Like atomic acid rain burning pinholes into copy paper boxes we'll use to capture selfies after the power runs out. Always unfazed, having drilled the almost useless emergency action plan since Columbine, when the discordant snare drum gunfire, oh dear, announced the end, we just thought we'd lost the 77-day lottery. Shambling to our designated spots, clustered fodder for the massacre. Any teachers left slip on coagulating flagstones, dead kid desensitization tripping us up as we stumble through the newly fallen, faces lost in the glint of gripped, screen-shattered cell phones, apocalyptic cricket notifications, buzzing and chirping forever unread. The jangling croaking is only the campus ravens, bathing in the blood pools blooming in the courtyard before the cafeteria. I sit stroking the chestnut hair of a 16-year-old corpse whose name used to be Eli, but is now crow meat. I think he was in my honors English 5th period once. Seemed I've failed him again. Well, me and the state. And this American stratocracy that made anyone turn hollow rage into militia. staring at the panoramic slaughter, dumbfounded in its useless grammar, tone deaf in the momentary shock of knowing that death literally means left behind, my sadness descends. For if the children are all dead, this really is the absolute end. Unless a blaze of sequins scorches my peripheral, and raising dry eyes, I spy an army of drag queens, gloriously standing silently at the gate, waiting to save us all. This is Chair with a good idea.
Well, thank you, Ash. That was amazing. Next up is Heidi.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I've been working on a memoir for a while, and it's about, in 1979, I went to Houston, Texas to go to Rice University, and then I ended up working on drilling rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. And so this is just a very short scene from this memoir that I'm working on. Incomplete, it's not. So, let's see. Larry walked up to me as I was crouched down painting red lead primer on the deck under the helipad. I've got a different job for you, Heidi, an inside job. I stood up. Inside? What do you mean? You heard the galley hands had a fire in their room, didn't you? Yeah. Well, we need to go in and paint the wall and ceiling that got smoke damaged. That's what they get for smoking in bed, I said. Those shitheads, I don't know what the fuck they were doing in there, but they sure made a mess. You're gonna want to scrub it down with some soap and water and then come back when it's dry and paint it. It was hot and I didn't mind going inside where it was air conditioned. I walked into the galley and got a glass of the electrolyte drink on ice. It was red that day. Big Al had followed me in. They called him Big Al because he was so small. He was the most diminutive man I'd ever seen. Brandy and I called him the Jungle Cat because he was always on the prowl. He was shorter than 5 feet and looked like a boy, only with sideburns. He was in his 30s and chewed toothpicks to keep from smoking. He stood next to me at the bubbling drink machine and said, Heidi, I want to show you our room, and I'm kind of embarrassed because of the pictures. Pictures? What? Do you have pictures of naked ladies in your room? I laughed. Yes, we do, as a matter of fact. Oh, why don't you just come look? He opened the second door down from the galley and stood outside, motioning for me to go in and said, I'm sorry. I looked inside and saw 4 bunk beds, pretty standard, except for the centerfolds from different magazines on the walls. He pointed up. The ceiling was pure beaver shots, a collage from corner to corner of well-lit vaginas. I stood in awe for a moment and started to laugh. I'm really sorry, Heidi. I never thought you'd ever come in here. We never thought there would ever be any woman out here. Is it bad? Is it terrible? Do you think it's awful? Tell me. Oh, Al, I just think it's funny. It looks like someone spent a lot of time gluing it all up there. I'm so glad you're not freaked out. I was really afraid. You know, normally you would never see it. We had that goddamn fucking fire. He raised both his hands with fists in the air and shook them and made a growling sound. It's not a big deal, Al, don't worry. I just need to find a ladder and a bucket, and I'll have this washed down in no time. Okay, you sure? Yep, no problem. I couldn't wait to tell Jill, my lesbian coworker, but she might want to trade jobs. No way I was going to give up an inside job just because she liked girls. Jill couldn't get over how I didn't like women the way she did. She asked me one day when we were scrubbing the gray deck outside the living quarters, "So, if Raquel Welch walked up to you and wanted to kiss you, would you do it?" I thought about it a second. Me, face to face with such a gorgeous woman. No, I didn't want to kiss her. I wanted to be Raquel Welch. Irresistible to men. That's the main feature of my fantasies. The men aren't that important. It's my power to arouse them that brings the heat. Nope, I said, not interested. Ah, she looked incredulous. I can't believe it, not even Raquel Welch. No, not even her. I didn't understand it myself. I tried fantasizing about being with women, but it didn't get me where I needed to be. I looked at the naked women in my dad's Playboys, but they turned me on in the same way as Raquel Welch or Ginger on Gilligan's Island. I imagined being the object of men's desires. Looking at a ceiling of pussies didn't make me want to get up close to one in person. I had my own and a mirror, but looking at it wasn't all that compelling. I liked how it made me feel. It wasn't pictures of men that made me horny. I'd looked at Playgirl magazine too. No, it was the memory of touch, or even the taste. I could feel the weight of my lover's body on mine by gliding my tongue across the roof of my mouth. Yes, there.
Well, thank you, Heidi. We're going to take a quick break from the open mic, and Gabrielle is going to play some music for us.
I don't need a sound check or anything.
Are you good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good if you guys are, unless you need a break.
I think we're good. Well, let's grab a quick drink and then come back. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
So just, if you want, grab something to drink. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Hello, hello. I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear this okay, but we're gonna try.
Oregon.
What's that?
Oregon.
Okay. Can you hear that guitar?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Of course, we're in the second row.
What's that?
We're in the second row.
We're in the second row.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Where's the sound guy? My name's Gabrielle. It's been nice to hear everybody's poems. I'm a local Tucson musician, and this is a song called 1953 about Tucson, back when my mom was just a baby. Can you all hear that guitar at all? Yes. Okay. Granddaddy behind the wheel. There's two little girls in the backseat. Sonoran Desert was like a dream in 1953. Blue sky filled with clouds. Driving down South 6th Avenue. Grandma waiting there in her hat and scarf and her cowgirl shoes. And the sun was bright enough to see for miles and miles. The summer rain ran free in Little Julie, when you're coming home. Little Julie, you've been gone too long. Little Julie, come on home. We're all waiting for you. Her sister laughing in a flatbed truck. She fell asleep on Grandma's knee. The rodeo parade rolled by in the sweet Arizona breeze. Blue sky filled with clouds. Driving down South 6th Avenue. The pretty girls all in their hats and scarves and their cowgirl shoes. The sun was bright enough to light the whole ride home. Desert wild and free in 1953. Little Julie, when you're coming home. Little Julie, you've been gone too long. Little Julie, come on home. We're all waiting. Thank you, thank you. Let's see. I'm gonna play a song that I wrote a little ways back, and then I played it with an ex-bandmate, and they're the only person that I played it out with, even though I wrote it way before we were in a band together. And I don't know, it might be the same with poems in some way, I'm not sure, but somewhere I lost touch with this song, and I love this song, and this is the first time I'm going to play it as my own, because I wrote it, even though I did play it with this person that I'm no longer playing music with. You get the idea. Okay, so I just felt like, oh yeah, this would be a good opportunity to just take a song back, right? So this is called Back to the Heart. And it's going to be, it's the title track of the album I'm working on, and I've had a block with it. So here goes, here goes. Oh, let me just tune, because I care. As a poet, what do you tune? La 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 la. Your mind. You tune your mind, okay. I wrote this song when I finally let go of a bunch of grudges, so it was so weird that I ended up having a band breakup over the song. So anyway, that's the irony of life. This is called Back to the Heart. Could I be right? you through all of the hurt. This is what it's like to love. This is what it's like to give it up. This is what it's like to finally find my way back to the heart, back to the heart, back to the heart. Oh, good. Thank you, you guys. That was really nice to sing that one. Well, I guess I'll leave you with let's see. I'll leave you with a song called, what shall I play?
What makes you happy?
Sad songs?
Whatever makes you happy.
Okay, I'm gonna sing it. I'm gonna sing you another sad. It's a bit of a sad song. I have played this one time before in front of people. I'm trying out songs. See, that's what these are for, right? This is a song called "Of a Fallen Bird." It's based on a true story. Songwriters are definitely poets, I suppose. I don't know. Right? It's weird to be a singer-songwriter. I love telling stories that aren't about me the best, because, but my songs come from experiences. And anyway, this is called "Of a Fallen Bird." A little bird, baby, falling from a tall tree. When I was a child of 5 + 3, and I wanted to save thee, heal you till you fly free, soaring above the tall trees. But we all know how the tale of a fallen bird does end. You knew it when the song began. And if you were this child's friend, would you have told her before the end? Or let her go on and pretend that bird will catch right on the wind? And she would like to save every soul, but she could only save her own. Enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you for having me. enter Gabrielle Tucson Music. I'll come, my website will come up. Come see me.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll be at the film festival. You can find me there next.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Wow. And next up, we have Naomi.
Hello. Hello. Not that tall either. Okay, hi. I'm gonna move this really quick. Hi, my name is Naomi. I also host poetry open mics if you guys ever want to come down at Revolutionary Grounds. First Friday of every month, 5 o'clock. I will see you there or in Divine Timing. I'm not a stickler for it. So right off the bat, I just fair warning, very spiritual. I love to deep dive into our emotions and what it takes to become the best version of ourselves, and that usually means a bunch of honesty, a bunch of feelings, but we got this, we could do it. So I'm gonna read from you guys from my first book, and I'm very excited, they're all rough drafts. After Monday, which is the spring equinox, I get to gun-ho and actually start on it, because I took a break, because you know they're overwhelming. So I'm gonna go ahead and read it. The first one is addiction, which I don't know if anyone here has struggled with addiction or any type of addiction before. This one goes out to you, because I personally really like drugs. So we're just gonna get into it. Right? Like they're fun. Oh, they're fun. Okay, we're gonna be honest, they're fun. And alcohol, it's all fun. But there's a balance, and you guys are gonna figure that out real quick. All right. I have been addicted to one thing or another my whole life. When I was younger, it was sugar and comfort to escape through television and cartoons that wouldn't yell at me to be better, only myself. My teenage years, I was addicted to anything that helped me escape my reality. Books, music, anything that satisfied a piece of me so that I could hope. Growing into adulthood, drugs and medication were the same thing, only one was prescribed and billed now versus later. A title didn't make them much different. I drank myself into nights of oblivion because I finally didn't feel my lows I was avoiding until they caught up to that very thin line that pushes you into a fully emotional being that lacks self-control, lacks the courage to release the past. I would pick fights, make out with people I shouldn't, make decisions and remarks that taught me lessons of shame. I became addicted to feeling high. If that's on acid, weed, coke, whatever the dealer's choice, I love to feel ecstasy. While 3 hours ago I was at my lowest, I crave the contrast. I crave experience. I itch to know how I will be different after the euphoria. Even the addiction of sex held its own glory, especially makeup sex. After an argument, tell me you'll never leave me. You are addicted to me. Me by your side is the only way you'll stay alive when we both know tomorrow morning we won't have the same endorphins. I'll roll over, see you and sigh. Let's do this all over again. I'll get the torch so we can confuse it for passion and not a toxic relationship. I was addicted to having someone desire me, love me, even at the cost of my peace, my sanity. I needed someone to abuse me because that's all I've ever known. I'm addicted to the suffering of my life, to the pessimistic thoughts cycling me into another pill bottle, another shot. Chaos is an adrenaline rush, and I prefer my uppers with the downer. The balance that left me floating away from my body, I can't feel my face. Everything glows like the fairies, my fingers disappeared. How long has it been? I love the high, it's so much fun. Until you look deeper, sink deeper, feel deeper as to why you started in the first place. One addiction traded for another, and I'm finally looking in the mirror, listening to the trauma my inner child endured, and then it all makes sense as to why I'm still so addicted to fear, to doubt, to not recognize myself as more than my obsession of despair. Who am I if I don't suffer? Let me refill my body with energy that never satisfied my highest purpose. I thought I was supposed to run away, feed my family's need for drama, let others speak of me however they desire. I know I'll supply your addiction too. We can pretend to not see yours because denial is also willing to satisfy our egos. I am fascinated by feelings. especially my own, how it alters my mental capacity, my cravings, my ability to receive love. I love to reflect on every word, each shift of energy, how long it takes to return or stay in my core. I'm obsessed with myself in the way a creator observes its creation of free will. Addicted to my evolution of growth. What's gonna happen next? I'm hooked on my transformation. I need to know all layers of me, every low and high of each emotion. My tears are delicious. My anguish is heavenly. My war is enticing. I'm addicted to my story of all that I suffered, because that means justice will be sweet. My highs will feel higher than nirvana. My happiness will taste like freedom. I'll be addicted to a whole new way, to a whole new me. I'll know the balance of overcoming trauma and ascending into spirit. I'll keep savoring each nowness until I no longer can, until my end of this body meets divine timing. I'll stay open to new experiences, new emotions, new lessons that keep me addicted to living my life in full gratitude and perseverance. Thank you. I'm gonna take a sip of wine for that one, right? Because that one was fun. Cheers, by the way. The next one I'm gonna do is called Intuition. And I'm sure everyone here has that battle, right? With that tiny little voice that told you to do something and you didn't do it, and you're like, why didn't I listen? That's your intuition. So this one goes out to your intuition. The scariest thing about me is my intuition. She is the seer of truth. Full detachment is required. She doesn't care about my feelings or how I will react. She's just honest. She only wants to show me exactly how something is, what the energy is projecting. She shows clips of movies called reality, just painting the picture of the underlying shadows, intentions, what kind of darkness may linger, or the silent truths of those I admire. Her crystal ball, that powers my third eye, takes it very personally when I shut the curtains, imprison her away due to my own fear. Everything is made of energy, therefore everything feels, and so do the angels who report to me, protect me, guide me. My intuition and spirit work as a team, and when I finally learn to believe that I am all being seen, unseen, feared, adored, ignored, to the lowest of creations, to the highest of ascensions, every god and goddess, word, frequency, all things made or to be made, the end, the beginning, the spiral of symmetry, all make up my intuition, my imagination, my eyes of wisdom. My body wouldn't have survived without her. I have my instincts to think for her, trained by experience. Trusting her has always been difficult, especially the aftermath of not listening to her when she was only trying to warn me. Now I have lessons to learn I could have avoided, but I'm low-key a masochist. So let's learn the hardest ways that I can feed my chaos. Let me feel the lowest of sorrow so I can transform into the unimaginable, the unheard of, the undreamed of. I know I can do it. I just have to let go. I have to let go of my control, my hesitation, my fear, my obsession with balance, to allow myself to just exist without expectation, to remember the creation of myself, of my intuition. I am connected to all energies inside and outside of me, so I know all if I choose to ask and listen. Warning, only ask if you can trust, because sometimes I like to drown myself with my attachment to knowledge, the eternal war of believe or not to believe. My intuition can only guide me if I let her, if I pay attention to the lectures, if I did the shadow work, because she only wants the highest version of me, so we're in alignment. Sometimes I resent her when she shows me something too dark, a truth I suppressed for reasons, the feelings I thought I buried. She hands me these memories so gently. I asked to evolve, for change, but first comes the acceptance of my story, the years I lived in a horror movie and the ending I never predicted. Me and my intuition make a killer division. We can take on armies of any kind, egos of humans, demons, the evil eye casted on me, the words that used to haunt me, my shadow self I battle endlessly. If I have her by my side, I can make it through anything. Connection of mind, body, soul, my triangle transmuting my aura, my light of love will conquer anything. I just have to believe, trust, encourage myself fearlessly, listen to my highest self, those wiser than me, stay open to receive and give unconditionally. This journey hasn't always been fun. There were moments I thought I'd never see the sun again, lows that should have broken me, memories I still wish didn't happen, unresolved pain still stagnant, and my intuition whispers, it won't always be this way. So then I go to tackle the monster that keeps me from hope. I'm being guided to my wish fulfillment of a life, and I'm done not fighting for a world of peace. Thank you. I'm gonna do one more. I don't know if you guys are into manifestation. I'm a huge sucker for it. So I'm gonna explain to you kind of what that takes, and yeah, we'll go from there. Manifest. Manifestations are completed through intention and purpose. What is the feeling behind the physical accomplishment of getting what you're asking for? Will this feed your passion or neglect gratitude? Bring you closer to yourself or cycle in unhappiness? Why are you really asking for the things you're asking the universe? Because everything comes true, either in this dimension or another. All possibilities are in your wavelengths emitted by your brain, who is ruled by your heart. Your emotions dictate your reality. Your thoughts are materialized by the feelings you attach to. Who is currently running your kingdom? Do you set your throne, or is it your ego? Is it someone else entirely, an outsider who is allowed to overthrow you? Because manifestation is magic. However you feel it is how it will appear. And only the person who sits on the throne can wield it. I would manifest unconsciously. Little things would appear in front of me the next day: arguments, a meal, a message from source, nostalgia. Every craving came true. Maybe not in the way I wanted, but I didn't even realize I did that. My unawareness kept me in disbelief. Growing up, I was taught to pray. What now to me is the same as manifestation. Only difference is the God's name you connect to. Each one is empowered by belief and divine timing, your objective, hope, motivation, same view, with various bridges you can cross. Since the beginning, I have always asked for the highest version of me, for me to become who God needed me to be, to fulfill whatever mission I was assigned to. Sometimes it feels like I've bitten off more than I can chew, because I didn't realize what that meant. Not until I got to a point in my evolution where I couldn't go back. I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I walked away. I have manifested this, waited for this, cried as I prayed for this, screamed and cursed the goddesses for this, to embody my ultimate dream of ascending into a rainbow frequency. It demands sacrifice, moments of faithlessness, to have to rise after every fall. It demands you challenge your ego, to choose true love in every nowness. It takes overcoming all fears, all blockages in your energy. Asking to become the highest version of you takes work, emotional availability, honesty. It takes your whole entire soul. It will feel like death. All that you know will revive as the unknown. You won't recognize yourself. All illusions melt away, and only you and Source are there, will remain. What would you then ask the creator of all things? Money or comfortability, control or freedom, lust or love, lower or higher? Do you know the difference? Would you even say thank you? Not only do I ask for the highest version of me, but for you, the whole earth, the beings of this universe, every cosmo, and I will gladly die on that hill, crucified in selflessness and self, if that is what it takes to make my manifestations and prayers come true. I'll keep reincarnating until I no longer have to, until we all rejoin in the same consciousness, go back home in blissfulness, until we fulfill the prophecies of the new federation. Worlds nurtured by peace, every galaxy will know unconditional love. I have asked, so it will be. Thank you, you guys have been awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Naomi. And next we have Leanne.
Hello. So I printed out this lovely large print thing and then left it right by the door as I was saying goodbye to my kids and our puppy. So I'm going to read it from my phone like the young folks do. Okay, so I want to thank all of you who read and performed. I really enjoyed listening to all of you. And I want to thank Maryrose for inviting me out to this wonderful space. And when I started writing again after a long time of not writing, about 8 years ago, Maryrose was in the class with me, and she was one of the people that encouraged me and helped me find my voice again after so long of being away from it. So I want to dedicate this reading to her. So I'm writing a memoir and essays, but I'm cheating on it with fiction. And so I'm going to read you this piece of fiction that's fiction, but speculative nonfiction, and maybe a novel that comes from a lot of like newspaper articles from the 1890s from this like very small town in Texas between Lubbock and Amarillo that lasted for about 2 years. And it just went away. Like there's no trace of it except for in the newspapers. And I'm like, what ripe, fertile ground for a novel. So this is called Mayshaw. And let me tell you the story about Mayshaw. And this is fiction, but kind of. Okay. By the time the cowboys reached the singing well, the song had stopped. It sounded like a gin saw cutting through cotton, the air rushing in and then over the well like breath leaving the body, like a soul screaming its separation from the same. The cowboys looked down into the hole, reckoning it about 30 feet. The wind kicked back up again, colder than before, the sure sign of a blue norther. They looked at each other and shrugged, but then another song started up, this one different. Another performance of notes, like an Aeolian harp. A dirge, more vengeful than melancholy, made the cowboys straighten their backs, their fingers reflexively twitching, reaching for their pistols. They didn't stick around to the end. They ran back to their horses and rode to the Pearsons, the nearest homestead. Was it water? Or was it the wind that made the sound of a high lonesome? Or was it the land, so static and still it had to break its own silence? Could land be so flat? Everything, even gravity, worked differently? The newspaper makes no mention of the well. No one knows what to make of it. Besides, word hadn't reached Lockney or Flodata, nearby towns. And new towns are popping up by the day in the surrounding counties. Aspiring newspaper editors fired up handmade presses one week that dried up the next. The local papers report that work will begin soon on a new public school building here in Mayshaw. Mayshaw, for one, could never be the county seat, but it would position itself as the center of arts and culture. They would recognize an Aeolian harp from a hole in the ground. And I do have a train coming up later. Poor timing. One newspaper reports, prospects around Mayshaw were never brighter. On the same page as there is not a saloon in Lindale, alongside advertisements for medicines that claim to cure deranged female organs and the 1,001 ailments that arise from them. This is the 1890s. A few months later, the Mayshaw Zephyr, now with a paper, says, "We need a hotel in Mayshaw. Parties wishing to enter such a business will please write the Zephyr, and we will take pleasure in seeing what can be done as inducement." As if 2 newspapers weren't enough for a county of less than 1,000. But the papers contain ads for cheap land and advertise plentiful water. The water witcher must be busy. One wonders what he thinks of the Wailing Well and whether such music promises water or a curse. And what greater curse is there than a dry well? In the papers, Thomas A. Gray from Santa Barbara advertises the miracle of his tragedy prune. It's a varietal, the tragedy prune, in a stanza. A new fruit of wonderful promise, a good shipper, an easy bearer, the coming paying prune, planted. But in a growing guide for the Panhandle and Llano Estacado of Texas, published in 1910, D.J. Muncie calls bullshit. His grocery gives him business enough to buy some land and make of it a hobby. He plants an orchard of apples, Yellow Transparent, Duchess of Oldenburg, Maiden Blush, and Wagner. He claims the soil of Floyd County does well with these apples, as well as wild plums and grapes, and some varieties of prune. The tragedy prune is not among them. 100 years pass. Mayshaw might be an odd bit of concrete rock disturbed by a tractor here and there. Wouldn't know it to feel it. Some old-timers talk of the wild plums, though few remain. The best time to gather them, when you can find an odd creek bed outside Kittiquay, is when the snakes come out in spring. The mail carrier on that route off the Cap Rock knows where to find them. The singing well? What's singing well? Probably filled in and plowed over, like the thousands of playas, never mind the ancient aquifer that sits underneath. Prunes? A tragedy prune? No one grows prunes here. Who would try such a thing? So that's the beginning of Mayshaw. Thank you. And it's a weird thing writing this because the narrator is clearly omniscient. The narrator could call in the past, the present of the Mayshaw that exists for 2 years, and the future of Mayshaw, which is depleted by extraction, whose communities die out, whose schools, diminish, the populations. And this is where I grew up. So, I grew up in a town. The population was about, I think, 3,200 in 1996, and now it's well under 1,500. People aren't staying around. Agriculture isn't the way that it, was there anymore. And this community sits at the ass end of the Ogallala Aquifer. At that part of Texas where extraction is the highest, where the water table was once so plentiful that it's near gone because of all the extraction, because maybe we weren't supposed to plant cotton there. Maybe the Comanche had it right, and it was their hunting grounds, and it should have been left alone. So this is the end of Mayshaw, and it's titled The Dynamitest of the Drought Counties. The town of Mayshaw lasted 2 years for the droughts and the plague of grasshoppers that followed. A swarm of grasshoppers sounds like a severe thunderstorm, and it's a cruel thing that the false noise of a hard rain could come by way of drought and finish off crops made so meager by it. The grasshopper, the Rocky Mountain locust, attacked prairies blighted by drought because dry conditions forced the plants to hoard sugar in their stalks. Sugar the grasshoppers could not resist. They traveled from Kansas, these creatures, small and of the wingless kind. They came in 1874 and returned about 16 years later and made their way south, as they often do. The big city papers brought news that the grasshoppers in Kansas would jump on cooling train tracks after the sun went down. When the trains would run, the resting swarms would get mashed into a greasy paste that stopped those drive wheels from turning. It was easy to dig a well in Mayshaw. The water was shallow enough. A few years before, T.J. Braidfoot had the shit luck to build a school in the center of a badly surveyed county, which also happened to be the worst spot for water. This would be Dela Plain, and it would vanish as soon as upstart Floydada challenged the town of Lockney for the county seat. Mayshaw was born from conflict avoidance, near about as anything else. People got sick of the fighting, the back and forth, and made their own town about 1.5 miles from the Muncie House and its many orchards. Some think the rise of Lockney as a township and the railroad splitting the town ruined Mayshaw, but those who lived there blamed the grasshoppers. They had a good run, though it was a short one. The people, I mean. But I guess it could be argued the grasshoppers had a pretty decent run too, even if the Rocky Mountain locust went extinct soon after. Mayshaw had a school and a church. The people joined clubs, including a library and a literary society. They gave concerts and lectures, hosted lively debates on a wide variety of topics. They were civilized. And I think they were happy enough. In the summer of 1892, the growth continued along with picnics and parades and even more gatherings. But then that year, they started going longer and longer without rain. The town grew, yet the rains did not come. The rivers ran dry, the cattle died, the grasshoppers swept in like a bad cloud and cleaned everything out. And as the land grew dry and the grasshoppers grew fat on anything green and growing, the residents of Mayshaw read of the rainmakers in the big city papers. The federal government gave General Robert St. George Dyrenforth, formerly of the U.S. Patent Office, thousands of dollars to coax rain from the clouds by way of explosion. Dyrenforth, dedicated concussionist, set up shop near Midland and then El Paso, and somewhere at the foot of the Llano Estacado. The general, who was never a general, not really, but a major in the German army, maybe, or some say, but whatever, he traveled by train and brought with him a balloonist and a chemist, an electrician and a mechanician, and one civil engineer. The boxcars traveled uneasily with their 8 tons of sulfuric acid, 50 balloons, and dozens upon dozens of 8-foot kites, along with a variety of dynamite and other explosives. Dyrenforth and his crew set off as many explosives as they could, and when it finally did rain, the air was so dry the water did not reach the ground. The cowboys and ranchers knew better and had to tell Dyrenforth what clouds gave rain and which merely shadow. They started calling him Dry henceforth. Even if they knew better, the newspapers reported success because it made a better story. The Morris Ranch saw rain. An outfit of 4 men set off explosives aimed at the sky. We expect more rain within a week. May this drown the prairie dogs out of their holes. But the truth was, the rainmakers came to Texas and spent most of their time squatting with their trousers down around their ankles after drinking too much alkaline water. Still, the papers challenged the skeptics. If there's a little rain from these blasts, then maybe the government should send more boxcars of boom. In other words, if we throw more money at it, it will rain. The children watched the kites with their tasseled tails a waving charge for sticks of dynamite. The explosion shook the earth, the sky loud and lit up. The rains didn't come, but sometimes it did. And that could be enough to make a few believers. And the children watched and they listened to their parents and the teachers and the preachers talk about the rainmakers, about the men with the dynamite. They shook their heads when they got old enough to know better. When C.W. Post detonated dynamite along the Caprock in his great rain battles against drought. They thought they heard the rumble when some were sent off to war in Europe and others to munition factories across the South. They didn't know when, as children, they watched the rainmakers aim their ordnance at the sky, that the ground could turn on them as young men gone to war and make of gravity a weapon, that the explosives could fall on them from clouds like rain. Before the war, they hardly could have known that the airplanes would begin seeding clouds with sand and dust and dry ice. Nothing would come of it, but the idea never died. 100 years later, in 2016, planes sprayed mixtures into clouds, formulas made special for each region of Northwest Texas. Just what they seed these clouds with, it happens still, is a mystery. Drought is a battle fought in the sky, although it is a problem of extraction. It's a wartime tactic. Operation Popeye, for one, long denied. Seed the clouds with silver iodide, watch the North Vietnamese run, clear the jungles, make the roads impassable, create the conditions for landslides. Did it work? I don't know. The results of this latest venture over the arid Texas South Plains have been mixed, yet promising. But this increase in rain isn't nearly enough to meet our appetite for water. Where the people of Mayshaw once lived and where those of surrounding counties do now, the aquifer below has seen the greatest rate of depletion given a waning population, a population that never was much to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Well, that is it for this evening. Our next event is going to be on April 21st. And is going to be the last A Moveable Beast of this season. We will be starting back up hopefully in August or September. So thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next month. Well done.